and welcome to the Thought Balloons Podcast. I am your host, Jeff Folsham. With me today is myself. It is Friday, October 8th. This podcast should have come out this morning. But I've been super busy this week. Over starting on the 1st, I started drawing pages in earnest for a graphic novel that I'm trying to get done by December 1st. So in the last week, I've averaged about 2 pages a day. Sometimes less, sometimes more. Yesterday I ended up doing 3 pages. But yeah, it's been a week now since the end of the Kickstarter campaign, and I thought I would kind of take this time to, I don't know, kind of decompress a little bit. I haven't given myself time to really process thing. And I also think, maybe I'm doing this a little prematurely. Maybe I should have, waited another week or two to kind of do the retrospective podcast. There are things that lead me to believe that, like, primarily the fact that things are kind of in a state of limbo right now. Like, I haven't received the payment from Kickstarter yet, right? So it's not like I'm riding the high of like, oh man, they just deposited, a couple $1,000s in my bank account, right? Like, I don't have that kind of energy or hype yet. But I think, I threw myself into another project for a couple of reasons. One being that we just gotta keep working, right? It's like, as I've said on the podcast before, and I've said many places before, art isn't fun, right? It's work. As one of my professors said. And that isn't to say that you don't get enjoyment out of doing art, but when you want to do art as, your career, as a thing that, makes you money, you have to show up and do the work, right? You have to put in the time and you have to do the thing. And it's like, when you're self-employed and you're doing these things for yourself, you have the luxury of taking breaks when you want to. Sure, you can take a vacation whenever you want, and quite often I take, time off or whatever in between big projects. Like a week or so in between projects, but I don't know. It's like not everybody has that luxury, you know? It's like if you're working for like a big company or something and you're doing another project, like I have friends who are constantly saying things like, "Oh, I got another presentation. I got to do another presentation this week." You know, things like that, and it seems like they're constantly moving from one thing to the next. And this year, and doing the kick like this first Kickstarter, I think the first thing that I've really realized is that maybe taking a week off multiple times a year is, I mean, it's good to decompress, but it's also hard to fight inertia, right? Like you take a break and you get used to sitting around and catching up on TV and like binge watching your shows or watching movies or that kind of thing. Or whatever it is you do, playing video games or reading books, whatever it is you do for fun. I think after a week or a week and a half of doing that, um it can get um not repetitive. Well, I mean, it can get repetitive, but I think you can get stuck in that kind of mindset pretty easily, or at least I can. um I know there's this whole like psychological thing of separating your sleep space from your workspace from your play space, and how you can kind of get into the work mindset a lot faster and stay in it longer if you have a dedicated space to do your work. um if your sleep space is only for sleeping, then when you go there uh and get ready for bed, you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer and have more restful sleep because that space is only for that one thing. And I think, like, for me, I don't have the, funds or the ability to say, I'm going to take a week vacation and then, go away for a week. I don't have the money to support myself, like saying, oh, I'm going to take a week off and I'm going to head down to the beach and leave my environment for that time. I think it would probably be a lot easier to take a week off or 10 days off, go travel, like do a thing, be somewhere else to decompress and enjoy just like the non-work time. And then when you come back, you enter your workspace again, you enter your daily life again. I think it would be a lot easier to sort of shift gears back into um production and that mindset. Um that said, I got the highway robbery short story for Ozrin West. I got that done, by like the second week of the Kickstarter campaign. I didn't know if we were gonna fund that stretch goal or not, so I wanted to have at least, my portion of the project, um, well in hand, um, and sent off to Abstracto for coloring. And quite honestly, other than transcribing the script for DOA from the movie, and doing like 20 pages of layouts in those 2 weeks, at the end of the campaign, you know, my last 2 weeks, especially the last week of the campaign, um, I kind of binge watched all of American Horror Story. So I did take some time, but I'm back on the grind now, and we ended the campaign on October 1st, and uh that was the day that I like really sank my teeth into doing pages for DOA, in a war comic that I'm working on. I'm in the habit of saying we now because I've been working with Abstracto so long. But I'm doing. I'm the only person on this book. Um, based, for those who are listening to this and you don't know about this project, I've been talking about it a little bit here and there, especially on stream. I think I've mentioned it once or twice in the newsletter. I've mentioned it, I think, once in a Kickstarter update. So it's out there. But for those who don't know, DOA, Dead on Arrival, is a movie from 1949, I believe. I've seen 1949. I've seen 1950 on various, like, you look it up on like Amazon or other places you can watch videos. Sometimes it says 1949. Sometimes it says 1950. Either way, year doesn't really matter. But it's a movie. It's a noir film. That due to a clerical error, has slipped into the public domain. So I'm taking that story, turning it into a fantasy noir comic. Just basically, this is my first adaptation of a public domain work, so I'm not entirely certain on how to do something like this. I guess maybe this, is going to demotivate people from reading it. Maybe it'll motivate people. I don't know, but part part of what I've done right now is literally just um transcribe the dialogue from the film and kind of go beat by beat, scene by scene, and turn it into a comic book. I've had to shorten dialogue and edit dialogue and cut out some scenes, and I've tweaked things. I've changed a few things here and there. Obviously, it's set in a fantasy world. The main story is this guy Frank Bigelow um goes on a little vacation, and ends up getting himself poisoned. And it's a poison without a cure, but it's like slow acting because he didn't ingest a lot of it. And he has to figure out who poisoned him before he dies. He has to solve his. He's a dead man walking. He has to solve his own murder. And I've changed it from being poisoned to being cursed. It's like magic, or whatever. But like, and I've changed, people. They're not just humans, right? Like, there's a half orc, as the main character, and dating an elf, things like that. But by and large, it's pretty much just the movie. Um, as I was going through it, I was like, I had a lot of trouble kind of adapting it to fantasy. Um, and maybe that's on me. Maybe the story just doesn't lend itself well to being more fantasy than, what it is in the actual movie. I feel like a lot of the changes I've made have been superficial, but I don't know. I'm having fun doing it. Um, it's certainly the writing process is certainly easier doing it that way, than coming up with a story all on my own. Last year, For those of you who have followed my work, you'll know that we did a fantasy noir story, but we wrote it together on stream, and that was the first time that I like really sat down to do like work, like, and I say that in the sense of like I had done work before, I had done comics before then, but one and a half of the like full issues that I had done prior to Beware the Bone Devil, which you can find at folshamart.com/BTB. Bravo Tango Bravo. It's for free. You can download it. Um, the comics I had done before then, at least one and a half issues of that I had done during school, and I didn't just sit down and do the comic, right? I had like other coursework I had to do, other projects that were part of grades, and I was fitting in doing comic pages in and around the other stuff that I was doing. Um, and then even after I left school, and I tried doing more conventions, and I was picking up some I was really seeking out the commission stuff. And I was still doing comic pages, but it took me like a year after school, after I graduated. It basically took me a full year to finish issue 2 of Osborne Tales and write and draw issue 3, right? So in October of 2020, instead of doing Inktober, or Drawtober, Arttober, any of those like daily prompt things where you're supposed to draw a picture every day of October, instead of doing that, I was like, I'm gonna challenge myself to do a comic book within a month. Lots of professional artists can do one issue of a comic in a month. A lot of times if they're gonna be on the newsstand, as they said in ye olde times, if these things are going up, in brick and mortar stores every month, obviously you have lead time, right? Because things got to get printed, they got to get shipped. Um, there's an editing process and all that stuff. And from the time you know put the last drop of ink on the proverbial piece of paper to the time that it goes in a store, maybe 4, 5, 6 months. But once those books start hitting shelves, they're gonna want at least a book every month, if not more. Depending on who you're working for and how long the stories are. I can remember back when DC started, the Rebirth thing back in 2016. Has it been that long? Has Rebirth been going for 5 years? Man, it could even be longer than that at this point. Maybe it was even 2014. Anyway, I digress. The DC stuff, I can remember back in the beginning of Rebirth, there was a lot of titles that were coming out twice a month, every 2 weeks. You got to build up a lot of backlog for that kind of release schedule. And so in 2020, when I did Beware the Bone Devil, that was like my first time like saying to myself, okay, I'm going to do a comic book inside of a month. And I did it. Now it's 2021, and I was gonna try and do it again. But when I adapted this movie into a script format, it might have ballooned up to 84 pages. Now it is the movie itself is about 84 minutes long. And I've actually cut out stuff. from the story. I've actually cut out at least one entire scene, maybe two entire scenes, depending on how you define a scene. There's a scene towards the end that is definitely exciting to watch in the movie. Um, but I didn't feel it was necessary to put it in the comic, so I cut that out entirely. And then there's a scene towards the beginning. Actually, it's about where I am right now in the book. Um, it's a scene where um the main character is he just arrives at his hotel. You know, he's on vacation. And he runs into some people. I guess meets some new people. We're having a party in the hotel room across the hallway. You know, um, one of the party goers asks to use the phone in his room because you know there's someone on the phone in their room. You know, they're trying to like order more drinks or whatever, and they have a little bit of small talk, and the main character gets invited to this party, and eventually that party moves to a bar, and um, some stuff happens at the bar to kind of really set off the proper and really get things moving. And I didn't think that you really needed that scene in the hotel room, right? Like it's easy enough for the scene to just be like, "Hey, can I borrow your phone? Oh, hey, what's going on? Who are you? Why are you here?" You know, that kind of thing. "Oh, you're here on vacation." Well, a group of my friends and I were just about to, head out, to for a night on the town. Like, why don't you come along? If you're on vacation, you might as well, And so I guess you could say that I cut out a scene if you consider that part of the sequence with these characters the protagonist meet to be a scene unto itself. And I guess in movies you technically do consider like you break up, you know, when you see like one location um as sort of like a scene. So like even though it's the same characters and like the same thought, maybe it is a scene um in the hotel room by itself and a different scene when they go to the club. Anyway, I've been working on this, and over the last week, over the last 7 days, I've done 14 pages. Out of the 19 pages that I have done layouts for. And I haven't really taken the time to kind of reflect on stuff. I was also reflecting kind of the whole time um that we were doing the Kickstarter, because I was doing those series of podcasts, which if you haven't listened to them, you can go back and listen to the most recent podcast. We've talked to a lot of people over the last few weeks about various Kickstartery things. We talked to Mr. Abstracto. Well, at first I did, the day after we launched, I did an episode by myself that you can listen to. We talked to Mr. Abstracto that for the following week. Then we also talked to Oneshi Press, JL and Lindsay, who they've run many Kickstarters themselves. We talked to Sam Branch and Mick Byers about their experiences with Kickstarter. And then last week we talked to Torrin Atkinson. We talked about a bunch of stuff on that podcast, but we touched on Indiegogo and some of the things, um, some of the similarities between those platforms. So I guess I've kind of been reflecting on the process the whole time, but even in my personal life, I haven't really taken the time to really reflect on uh the Kickstarter. And first and foremost, I just want to say that I am Lord. I know there may not be a lot of energy in my voice right now. Forgive me. I am recording this pretty soon after waking up today. So, you know, um caffeine um hasn't kicked in yet. But I'm stunned, and I almost don't even know how to process this. Honestly. Um like I've mentioned on the show before, I was doing, the comics launch course, which now that the Kickstarter is actually done, I'm gonna go back and you know review some things on the course and then continue on from where I left off, because there were um parts of it that um in the throes of doing the actual campaign, I was just like, I was so overwhelmed, like I just don't know what to do. And the fact that we had made our funding goal by day 4, um like, even though I really wanted to do as well as we could, like, the process itself is overwhelming. And you can go back and like listen to that first episode that I did um by myself, the day after launch, and just uh it was it episode 21 of the podcast. You can listen to that, and I wasn't expecting the turnout that we got on the first day. And there's still some of that like sense of awe, like just being awestruck, just it's been very humbling to see the kind of turnout, the messages, the excitement that people have shown throughout the process. um it's something that I'll probably end up talking to my therapist about once I start going to therapy and really getting into this stuff. I start that on Wednesday, actually, next week, 5 days from now. um I'm always, in my mind, I'm always tempering good news with the potential for less good news in the future. And I don't know if that's a good thing, if that's a healthy coping mechanism or not. I kind of wish that I had gotten abstracto to be here now that I'm having these these thoughts, this existential crisis or something. Um, but like, I didn't expect this thing to get funded in 4 days. Everything that I saw in like the metrics from the comics launch course, they give you a little equation, that it's like you can expect X percentage of your audience to back a thing. You can expect, you know um this amount of money on average per pledge, based on the averages in the comics, uh specific kind of thing, section of Kickstarter. You know, you put all these, like, you put all the data in, you plug in all the numbers, and it spits out a potential earnings thing, right? And that's, it said that I could expect to, fund a goal of about $1,500, $1,250 to $1,500. And I could expect about 30 to 35 backers. We doubled that pretty much. We had 71 backers on this campaign, and I still don't really know how to process that. It's amazing to me. Now, and then this is sort of where I get into my sort of, hedging my bets, or, trying to keep myself from getting overly excited or overly hopeful for a future campaign. One of the things, that I put a value of 0 in for, was any collaborators' audiences. There was a spot on there that I could have accounted for Abstracto's audience, right? He did a lot of coloring for this book, even stories in the main issue, before we got into stretch goals. He provided a story for a stretch goal that we actually funded that's going into the book. And I could have asked him for all of his numbers and stuff, and kind of calculated a more, maybe a quote unquote more accurate estimate. And maybe, now that I'm saying it out loud, perhaps I should do that now anyway. Maybe I should get a hold of him and say, hey, like, what are your numbers like? Let me plug that into this into this equation and see what the estimate would have been like if I had actually accounted for that. But even beyond that, there were things of just like, I think I've mentioned it in other podcasts when I was talking with other people, but there were multiple people, not just like one or two, but there was like half a dozen or more individual people who were following the progress of this campaign, like, seemingly more than even I was at times. Like, there were multiple times that I would wake up, check my messages, and find that someone had sent me a message being like, oh, hey, man, it's so cool to see, you've hit X dollar amount, or, X number of, backers on the campaign. And that was how I found out about those milestones, because I, had been asleep, or, the first couple of days I was refreshing the page quite a lot, but you get into that kind of middle slump area, and there were times when, like, yeah, I'd check it maybe when I wake up, or once during the day at some time. I don't think there was a single day that I didn't check the progress at least once, but it seemed like, at least from the feedback I was getting from people sending me messages, that there were some people who were following the progress really closely, and that was something that I didn't expect, and has been really cool. And like I said before, very humbling. Like, this is a big step for me in doing comics. It's like I'm taking that step from just throwing something up on a website, telling people about it, and hoping that people read what I'm doing. It's more than just popping a couple of short stories or a full issue of a comic up on patreon.com/Folsham_art, and hoping that people subscribe to my Patreon for, $3 or $5 to get those short stories or full issues. Which you guys should definitely do that. Highway Robbery is going to be up hopefully in November, as once we get the coloring done, and then I'm hoping to put the graphic novel that I'm working on up on Patreon at the $10 tier in early December, and then I'm gonna release it in roughly 20-page increments for the $5 tier starting in January. We're so get on that. Well, patreon.com/Folsham_art. It supports the podcast. But anyway, yeah, like I throw the things up there. I have comics on Indie Planet, as well. I have one of the issues of Osrin up on Comixology. For whatever reason, they didn't accept the submissions of issues 2 and 3, which is kind of weird. They said that the resolution wasn't good enough, even though I drew the pages exactly the same as I did issue 1, and put the PDF together exactly the same as I did for issue 1, and for whatever reason they were like, there's too much artifacting, the text is too pixelated, and I literally made it like I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, I literally made it the same way that I did the other thing that you thought was okay. So, needless to say, I haven't put anything else up on Comixology because I don't know what they want. But again, I digress. What I was saying is, this is a big step in my comics career. Like, I'm fucking doing like a crowdfunding thing now, and to see the audience support has been amazing. To see people coming in from outside my circle of influence has been really cool as well. And even and I'll even say, like, not just my personal circle of influence, but like you go out one ring on the bullseye, and like my 2 degrees of separation, right? Like, even outside, like, I have connections to people through Abstracto, right? I have connections to people through Mick. He was possibly going to do a story for one of the stretch goals. We didn't end up funding his stretch goal, but like, I know he shouted out the thing. JL and Lindsay, over at Oneshi Press, they shouted out the campaign. But even out beyond though that sort of 2 degrees of separation, there have been people who have found the comic just on Kickstarter. Hell, I had somebody message me on Twitter 2 days ago saying that they had just found the thing, they were really bummed out that they, weren't able to get in on the Kickstarter while it was still live, and is there any way they could get in after the fact. And I made another sale just because somebody reached out to me on Twitter, and that's been really cool. And to get to the sort of hedging my bets thing, is like, the next project I'm doing is this 84-page noir black and white graphic novel, but I'm doing it by myself, and maybe I can scrounge up some money here and hire an artist to do like an alternate cover, or make a poster or something. I don't know, and try and like expand the circle of influence for the next Kickstarter campaign. But I also want to keep it kind of simple as well. Um, we didn't make all of our stretch goals for Osborne West. A quick back of the napkin calculation here. For the profit that I'm going to be making, it doesn't look like I'm going to have enough money to hire anybody to submit even one short story for the next Osborne West anthology. So part of me really wants to take the money from the DOA Kickstarter. I want to keep it very simple, slim down, maximize my profit margins as best I can, and then use that money to fund Osborne West #2. I really really think that an anthology is best served when there are multiple people contributing to it. You get different kinds of stories being told. You get the excitement of different kinds of artwork being shown, and I think it makes an anthology just feel more alive when people are all contributing to make it bigger than what it would be and better than what it would be if it was just one single person doing it, like basically issue #1 has been, with the exception of Abstracto's one story. I did the other 3. And it's been fun, but I definitely think anthologies benefit from multiple people. And so like I hedge my bets, I see this double, the number of backers than what the metrics were saying I could expect with the kind of audience size that I have. But again, when I did those calculations, I didn't account for Abstracto talking about it on, his newsletter and on social media as much as he did. I didn't count on Oneshi Press or Mick Byers giving me shout outs, or any of the other people like Torrin Atkinson. He mentioned the Kickstarter on his podcast. Lots of people were retweeting it, and that's kind of like a nebulous sort of metric that you can't really put a number on. Like you can't really, unless you're paying people to promote you, you can't guarantee that that's going to happen. And so all of that is to say that while I am still trying to process everything, and I don't think the actual achievement of this has really fully hit me yet. Jesus, somebody, I don't know if that came through on the recording, but somebody sneezed in my house and it sounded like it was in the room with me. Anyway, I don't think it really has hit me yet. Like, I look at this number, we've made almost $2,300 or $13 off of that, unlocking that second Kickstarter stretch goal. And the money, like I said, hasn't hit my bank account yet, so I don't think it's really fully sunk in that we have like succeeded on a thing yet. We're still waiting on backer surveys to come in so that I can make sure that I credit everybody with the correct name and everything like that as well. And so we're kind of like in this weird limbo, like post campaign limbo. 82% of the surveys have been completed. 55 out of 67 eligible backers. We had some people back out of the 71. 4 people backed with no reward. So they didn't get surveys. But out of the 67 people, 55 people have completed the surveys. And I can't move forward with the project until either those surveys time out and people can't submit them anymore, and I just default to their whatever name they have on Kickstarter for the credits. I can't move forward until I can, finish the credits page, and I also can't move forward until I actually have the money in my account to then order all of the rewards and then, get things made, right? Like, I don't have the money in my bank account to just go ahead and order 100 books or something like that. Let's see. Yeah, a little bit less than 100 books. Roughly like right around 75 to 80 books. Like, I can't just buy those, until I have the money. It's really getting this weird limbo area. And like I said, I don't think it's really sunk in. But as I'm looking forward to the future, I find myself kind of tempering my excitement as well, because the next thing I'm doing is like all me, right? It's like just me by myself. And if you look at the numbers, right? If you look at the averages and the statistics and everything, one might think that the next thing we do will be, in air quotes, less successful because I don't have teammates. But who knows, Like I was saying throughout the whole process of this Kickstarter, you don't know until you know. Some of these things, you got to do them, and whatever happens, and I was expecting maybe 30 to 35 people backing my Kickstarter, and we got 71, for a fantasy western. Some people who backed this campaign might not back the next one because it's a fantasy noir, right? It's a different genre. It's noir instead of western. But maybe noir is a more popular category than western is, and maybe we'll bring in a lot more people from, outside of my own circle of influence, just from the fact that it's black and white noir work. I don't know. We can only see that. We'll only find out that when it actually happens. But yeah, it's been a ride for sure. Definitely been a ride. From those first few days of checking it multiple times a day, sometimes even sitting there hitting refresh on the page, every couple of minutes to see, new pledges coming in. The excitement of checking the backer reports and seeing names that I didn't recognize, and then going and talking to Abstracto or someone else, like Mick or somebody, and be like, hey, you know this person? Like trying to figure out where all the support is coming from, trying to pin down like who's new to the to the audience just from either some of the like paid advertisements I did on Facebook or just natural discovering of the book on Kickstarter itself. You know, seeing new names pop up, that was really exciting throughout the whole process. Putting together the updates, collaborating with people on through Kickstarter, not in the sense of like collaborating on like pages on the actual project, but just like putting together cross promotion and stuff. Like that stuff was a lot of work, you know. And I definitely have an appreciation for when people would say that running the campaigns are exhausting. Like it takes a lot of energy. And yeah, I don't know. Like I said in the beginning of this episode, like I haven't really given myself time to really rest. I mean, yeah, I may have binged like an entire series on Netflix over the last 2 weeks, but I don't know. I was still doing work when I was doing that, you know? And now I'm neck deep in this other project, trying to do 2 pages a day. Well, my goal to hit a December 1st deadline is actually a page and a half a day. Being whether that is, you know, like a full page of inks and then just another page of pencils to be inked the following day, or like full page and a half of inks. I don't remember how the actual breakdown goes, but I need to do about 1.38, I think, pages every day in order to make a December 1st deadline for the interior pages to be done for this book. And so far, I've been hitting 2 pages a day, so I've made some headway. You know, I'm creating a little bit of a buffer. But yeah, like I said, I haven't really given myself time to sit and really reflect and as I've kind of word vomited for the last 50 minutes, I think where I am right now is I'm still awestruck at the turnout. I'm humbled by the support. And I'm hopeful for the future. You know, I'm really hoping that I can keep growing as a creator. Um Not just in the business side of things, you know, of continuing to do Kickstarters, hopefully continuing to do successful Kickstarter campaigns, um, and all that stuff, but also like at this time last year, I was struggling to do a page in a day. You know, the last fantasy noir story, or Where the Bone Devil. So those 22 interior pages took me 27 days. In of October, last year. And here, you know, I've done 14 pages in 7 days. You know, at that rate, I'll have 22 pages done by day 11, which is less than half the time it took me last year. So, I'm hoping that to kind of bring it full circle, one needs to be productive. and one needs to continue being productive if one is to make this a career. You know, as Vance McCoy has told our class many times when I was in school, art isn't fun. It's work. It's rewarding work. It can be enjoyable work. It can even be fun at times, but it is work. You gotta show up every day. You gotta put pencil to paper. You gotta put your hands in the clay. You gotta, you know, type out words on a script or whatever it is that you do. If you want to be creative and make it a career, you have to treat it like a job. And seeing that effort pay off, even slightly, would have been amazing. To see it pay off as brilliantly as it did is something that I almost don't even have the words to describe. Yeah. Humbling. Still kind of in a fugue state of I don't know how to process all of this. You know, at the end of the day, I'm very excited to slap a bunch of names on the credits page of the book and put the PDF together and send it down to the printers and get everything printed, and you know, it'll be a fun day to see exactly it'll be a fun day to see exactly how much profits we have left over. There are some things that I think I might want to try and add on to the production side of things for the packaging that I didn't account for in my budget. Some of the things I didn't account for because I didn't know they existed, but now I do know they exist, and I think would be really cool. But yeah, like I said, back in the napkin calculation, I didn't have I don't have the money on this campaign to really put towards hiring people for the next issue of Ozrin West. So I might use some of that money to make the packaging on this one even better than what I had planned on, depending on pricing of certain packing material. But anyway, usually when we come to the end of a thought balloon, I like to answer some viewer or listener questions. I do believe we have something in the I do have one in the Discord, but I'm gonna save that for when we actually have a guest. I think it would be funnier for when we have a guest, because my answer for the question is not really interesting or entertaining at all. So yeah, just kind of default to the advice section. I'll refer you back to the art is not fun, it's work. You know, for anybody out there trying to do something creative or non-standard in, you know, pursuit of self-employment, you have to remember that regardless of what it is, whether it's something creative like art or writing or music, um, you know, dance, theater, anything like that, or if it's, you know, trying to become self-employed as a realtor or a streamer, you know, playing in video games, whatever it is, in order to make it work, you have to work. And that is what I'm going to go do right now. It is now 11:34 in the morning. I'm going to quickly edit this, slap it on Anchor, and then start up my stream and try and get another 2 pages done today. If not, maybe 3, and build up that buffer a little bit more. Looking at the pages that I have to do, though, I'm probably only gonna get 2 pages done today. There's a lot of panels on these next pages, and there are a lot of things going on in these pages. So probably only a 2-page day, but hey, that's still above the 1.3 pages that I need to do anyway. As long as I can keep doing at least 2 pages a day, I'll have this comic done in 42 days, and I have 61 days to get it done, so yeah. Anyway, thank you all for listening. If you would like to support the podcast, you can head over to patreon.com/Folsham_art. For just $1, you get access to the Patreon members area of the Discord. There is a channel there where you can ask questions to be featured at the end of a Thought Balloons podcast. And I will always prioritize Patreon questions over non-Patreon questions. But for listeners who would like to ask questions but do not have the money to support the podcast monetarily, you can still join our Discord community. There should be links wherever you find links in the podcast descriptions or on YouTube or wherever it is that you find links to my content. You can join the Discord, and there is in our general social stuff section of the Discord, there is a Thought Balloons question submission section where you can submit your questions to be answered on this podcast. If you would like to support us on Patreon, though, since we were talking about comics today and we were talking about other things, $3 and up gets you periodic short stories and a few other things. Like I said, once Highway Robbery is fully colored, I'll be putting that up on Patreon for people on Patreon to read before it comes out in the next Osrin West anthology. If you would like to read previews of the entire Osrin West #1 before you get your Kickstarter rewards if you supported the Kickstarter, or if you didn't support the Kickstarter and you want to read the stuff anyway, $3, you can read each individual short story there on the Patreon. They're all up there, you know, unlock them. They're just in posts. $5 and up, that's where you'll get the full issues of things that I do when I produce a full issue of a comic book. Those are, you know, high teens to low 20s, you know, 18 to 24 pages, somewhere around there. If that's a full issue of a comic book, I'll always put it up on Patreon at the $5 tier before it goes anywhere else. And then graphic novels at $10 and up. We have multiple tiers with multiple different rewards, including things like working with me to create background characters or even minor recurring characters for different projects that I'm working on. I've toyed with the idea of giving art lessons to people, doing like a once per month kind of art class where I can teach you how to draw. As I've said before, here to answer that advice question in a slightly different way. If you can write, like if you can physically put a piece of, letters on, if you can put letters on a piece of paper or something like that, you can draw. All that writing is identifying the specific shape of a letter and then recreating that shape on a piece of paper. All drawing is identifying the specific shape of an object and recreating it on a piece of paper. And if you look at how difficult it is for kids to learn how to hold a pencil and make letters the right way, it's something that you forget as you grow up, that it was difficult learning how to write. Look at a first grader's writing and seeing how letters are often the same letter side by side is often different sizes. They'll reverse the direction of their E's and stuff a lot. It takes time, and it same thing for drawing. I honestly believe that anybody who can actually hold a pen and write letters can, with time and practice, learn how to draw, and that is something that I would like to help you do as well, if you're interested in that, over at patreon.com/Folsham_art. Also, Linktree. I have a Linktree, Folsham_art. linktr.ee/Folsham_art. You can find all of my links there as well. I believe there should be a link to the Discord on the Linktree. And yeah, join the community, and we'll see you next time on Thought Balloon. Have a good week, everybody. Everybody.